I thought I was alone in that Airbnb, but something was watching me. At first, it was just a blinking red light above the bed. I assumed it was a smoke detector until I realized it never stopped blinking. What I found hidden in the ceiling, the bathroom, and the mirror changed everything. And the worst part? Someone is still texting me. Weeks later, I booked a last-minute Airbnb after my flight got delayed overnight and all the nearby hotels were either full or outrageously priced. It wasn't in the best part of town. Graffiti on the walls, dim streetlights, and that weird emptiness you can't quite explain, but the listing photos looked decent enough, and I just needed a place to crash. When I arrived, something already felt off. It was too quiet on the street, a kind of silence that isn't peaceful, just unnerving. The host didn't meet me in person, just left the key in a rusted lockbox and texted me the code like it was a transaction, not a welcome. Inside, the apartment was clean but unnaturally sterile, like someone tried to make it look lived in without ever actually living there. The couch looked untouched, the kitchen counters were spotless, and even the fruit bowl on the table had fake plastic fruit in it. The walls were lined with generic artwork, the kind you'd find at discount stores, soulless, symmetrical, and completely void of personality. There was a bookshelf near the hallway, but the books were random. Titles with pristine covers and stiff spines, as if no one had ever opened a single one. Worse, the air smelled off not foul exactly, but like fresh paint or bleach trying too hard to cover something else. I told myself I was overthinking and dropped my bags on the couch, already counting down the hours until morning. The bedroom was small, with barely enough room to walk around the bed, and the only window faced a blank brick wall just a few feet away. But what really stood out was the smoke detector mounted directly above the bed, its red light blinking steadily in the dark. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another safety feature, until I noticed the blink wasn't slow or random, but fast, rhythmic, almost intentional. The pit in my stomach started to form then, like my instincts were trying to speak, louder than my logic. I lay on the bed, staring up at the detector, and the longer I watched, the more it felt like something or someone was watching me back. I sat up and scanned the room again, suddenly hyper-aware of every object, every corner, every tiny sound. That's when I noticed a second red light blinking behind the wall-mounted clock, faint but visible if you look closely enough. 2 blinking lights in one small room didn't feel like coincidence anymore. It felt like surveillance. My chest tightened, my breath shallow, and I could almost feel the presence of something unseen in the room with me. I walked toward the clock, heart pounding in my ears, and pulled it off the wall, and behind it, nestled in the wiring, was a tiny black lens pointed directly at the bed. I stumbled back, adrenaline surging through me, and scanned the rest of the room for anything else that felt out of place. I found nothing obvious, but the sense of being watched didn't go away. It grew heavier, more suffocating. I wanted to leave, to pack up and get out, but a part of me froze, like if I moved too fast, I'd trigger something I didn't understand. I turned off all the lights and sat in silence, phone clutched in my hand, debating whether to call someone or just run. Then I heard it, a faint mechanical whir from somewhere near the vent, too quiet to notice unless everything else was still. I crept over and stood on the chair to get a closer look, and behind the slats of the vent was another small black lens, blinking red just like the others. That was enough. I grabbed my bag, unlocked the door, and stepped into the hallway, heart racing so fast it felt like it would burst. As I turned to close the door, I caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of the room. Just a flicker, a caw, shadow, but no one else was supposed to be there. I slammed the door shut and ran down the stairs, out into the cold night, not stopping until I reached a crowded gas station several blocks away. I never reported it. I never went back. But sometimes, I still think about that apartment and whatever was in there with me. I'm not the paranoid type, at least. I wasn't before this. I've traveled solo a lot for work, stayed in all kinds of hotels and Airbnbs, even slept in my car once during a road trip. I've always been careful, but never scared. That night, though, everything felt wrong from the second I stepped in. I was in a city I didn't know well, one with a history of crime and a reputation for shady landlords. The building was old but renovated, likely flipped by someone trying to cash in on short-term rentals. There were no front desk staff, no neighbors in sight, and not even a security camera at the entrance. Ironic in hindsight. The check-in instructions had been overly detailed, almost obsessive, like the host didn't want me to have a single excuse to call. When I texted to confirm I'd arrived, they just sent a thumbs up. It felt cold. No welcome message, no hospitality, just efficient, robotic responses. Inside, I tried to get comfortable, but the longer I sat there, the more I noticed things that didn't make sense. Like the mirror in the hallway, it was slightly tilted down, even though it was bolted to the wall, or how the TV remote had no batteries. And then there was the vent in the bathroom. It looked like a normal fan, but the grill had a tiny hole that looked deliberate. Still, I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. It's just a weird apartment, I thought, but I was wrong. I was already being watched. I settled in for the night and tried to distract myself with a movie, but I kept glancing up at that blinking smoke detector. Once, twice, it blinked every 5 seconds. I tried to time it. Every 5 seconds. On the dot. Too perfect for a battery indicator. Then, I turned off the lights. That's when I noticed it. The red light didn't dim, it got brighter. Almost like it was adjusting. I pulled out a chair and stood on it, trying to get a closer look. The casing was sealed, but the light looked embedded in something behind a lens, not the normal diode you'd see in cheap detectors. Got a weird chill and stepped back down. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe. But I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the wall sounded louder. The hallway light flickered once around midnight, then stayed off. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just a smiley face. No context. No name. My number wasn't public. I deleted it, heart racing. I tried to sleep anyway, lying stiff on the bed, staring at the ceiling. That blinking red light didn't stop. Not once. Something was definitely wrong. At 2:14 a.m., I heard a soft click from the living room, like a door unlocking. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up. I reached for my phone in the dark and dialed 911, my thumb hovering. I crept out of bed, heart thundering, and tiptoed toward the hallway. The front door was still locked, but the closet door, one I hadn't opened, was ajar. Inside, a laptop was open, glowing. Recording software was running. My webcam feed was on at me, lying in bed seconds earlier. I felt my stomach drop through the floor. I turned on the light and scanned the room. Hidden between a stack of towels was a portable Wi-Fi router and a connected hard drive. The feed showed multiple camera angles: bedroom, bathroom, even the hallway mirror. I felt physically sick. I yanked the power cable out of the wall and ran to the bathroom to throw up. There was a tiny hole in the wall next to the mirror. Too small for a screw, just big enough for a hidden lens. I had been watched. Recorded. Stalked. And I had no idea for how long. I took everything I found and stuffed it into my bag laptop. Router, cables. I left the apartment within 10 minutes. Didn't even bother checking out. I called the police from the nearest 24-hour diner. They sent a patrol unit and took everything into evidence. An officer asked me if I'd noticed anything else strange. I mentioned the text. He asked if I'd ever used that Airbnb account before. Said no, it was my first booking. He went quiet. Later, I found out that Airbnb had flagged the host months ago. but the listing had just changed names and profile pictures. Same apartment. Same setup. Different face. The officer said I was lucky. Apparently, I wasn't the first, but I might have been the first to notice. The worst part? When I checked my emails that morning, I had a new message. No sender. No subject. Just one line. Next time, smile for the camera. Even now, weeks later, I still can't sleep in unfamiliar places. I cover smoke detectors, unplug alarm clocks, check every mirror and vent. My friends think I'm being paranoid. They don't understand. Once you've been watched without knowing, once you've seen yourself through someone else's hidden lens, you never feel safe again. I tried reaching out to Airbnb, but they offered a vague apology and a voucher, like it was just a customer service issue. I haven't used the app since. Sometimes I still get random texts. No number, no name, just blank messages or emojis. I block them every time, but they always come back. Someone out there still has footage, still has my name, still knows what I look like when I sleep. And that's what keeps me up at night. I've since learned a few things I wish someone had told me before I ever set foot in that apartment. Things that might have saved me from learning it all the hard way. You can actually spot fake smoke detectors if you know what to look for. Most real ones don't have lenses, so if you see something that resembles a camera lens, especially one that reflects light, that's your first red flag. If it blinks constantly faster than usual, or in a rhythm that doesn't match a low battery warning, take it down immediately, or cover it if you can't. Mirrors in public rentals, especially in sketchy or too perfect places, can sometimes be two-way. And the way to test it is simple. Shine a flashlight or even your phone's torch against the glass. If you don't see a gap between the reflection and the light, be suspicious. Always check for unexpected Wi-Fi networks too, especially ones with strange names or that show up the moment you enter. Many hidden cameras need a network to stream or upload footage. Cover up air vents if they look tampered with, especially if they buzz, whir, or have strange wiring leading into them. And unplug any digital assistant, smart speaker, or device that feels out of place if you didn't ask for it to be there. Assume it's not meant for your convenience. But above all else, always trust your gut. If something feels wrong, even just slightly off, don't stay. Don't second guess it. Leave. Get somewhere safe and report it to the platform or even the authorities if it's serious. Your peace of mind, your privacy, your safety, they're worth so much more than finishing a one-night booking in a place that doesn't feel right. I wish someone had told me all of this earlier. Maybe then I wouldn't have been the one lying in bed under a blinking red light, heart pounding, wondering who was watching me. Maybe then I wouldn't have had to piece it all together alone, after the fact, after the damage. But now that you know, you don't have an excuse not anymore. If you've ever stayed in a rental and felt like you weren't alone, you're not crazy. Sometimes that chill crawling up your spine isn't just your imagination. It's a signal, a warning, the kind your instincts try to scream when logic tells you to calm down. Sometimes the walls really do have eyes, quiet and hidden, blinking silently behind vents, clocks, smoke detectors, or even ordinary screws you'd never think to question. And sometimes those eyes are watching every single thing you do while you sleep, while you shower, while you trust that locked doors mean privacy. This wasn't just a paranoid thought or a horror movie fantasy. This was my real experience, and I'm sharing it not to scare you, but to remind you to stay alert no matter where you are, because not every danger announces itself. If you've ever felt that cold stare from something unseen, or noticed something just slightly out of place, or had a night where you couldn't shake the feeling of being observed, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. I used to laugh off stories like that until I became one of them. If something like this has ever happened to you, I want to hear it not out of curiosity, but because stories like these shouldn't be buried in silence or shame. They need to be told loudly and often, because there are others who need to know before it happens to them too. Just like someone needed to tell me. Just like I wish someone had warned me earlier. I was lucky to leave with only a story. You might not be. So the next time you check into a place that feels just a little too staged, a little too perfect, or a little too quiet, listen to that feeling. Check the ceiling. Check the vents. Check the mirror. Check behind the artwork. And above all, don't ignore the voice in your gut telling you that someone is watching, because sometimes they are.